The next step's to add some obstacles to the room. Now, I've already done this part here. It was a little bit more complicated, and so I'm just going to go through how I did it. I've just added some obstacles up here. My player can't move through these obstacles. At the moment, the bullets can shoot through them, which is going to be your task to fix up. So all I did was add in an object called wall, and I centered that object there. So it's just a black square. I made an object, which I should call object wall, down here. Oops, I made a mistake up here. That should be SPR wall. That's the sprite. And this one, OBJ wall. Doesn't need anything, but it does need to be solid. So that's one important thing. It does need to be solid. Now in here, my player movement script has changed a little bit. So I'm just going to explain what I did and why I did it. Yours might look different, and that's okay. So what I've done with mine here is at the top, like we did with the shoot one, I just set up temporary variables that every step it checks, is this true or false, etc. So it just makes this part here a lot more readable. Now what you might have down the bottom here is you might have this: if keyboard check ord w like that, and then you might have these little brackets, because this is how I did it initially, and you might have, that's w, so that's going to be y equals y minus player speed. Okay, so this is what you probably have, and it's not a big jump to actually modify this so that it still works, okay, rather than rewriting it like this here. So this bit here, if keyboard check or W, so if we look at the up one, well, that's this one here. So this here, all this is it's taking keyboard check or W and just popping it up there so that I've got a shorter key, shorter variable name to work with here. But it's essentially exactly the same thing as this here. I also figured out you don't need the brackets on the outside of it. It still works. You do need them on these functions though here. But now I've added something in. I want to check if the place above the player is free. So that's easy enough to add here. And place free. The X position for the player stays the same, but the Y minus player speed. The reason I do minus player speed instead of -1 is because I want to check that the position that they're going to jump to is free. Because it may be that the position just above them is free, but maybe 2 or 3 spots above them is not free. So I just check the place that they're going to jump to. So if both of these are true, if the keyboard is being pushed and the position above it is free, then we're going to go Y equals Y minus player speed. You'll see down here I've gone Y minus equals. That is the same thing here. So I could do this, Y minus equals, and it takes the value of Y and subtracts player speed from it. So it's just a few different shortcuts to do it. Now, it doesn't bother me, it doesn't matter whether you use this method and have like the longer way of writing it out, or you write it out like this here. But whichever one you use, make sure that you understand it. Okay, for beginners, this tends to actually be a little bit easier to follow because you've got these brackets here that keep track of what's going on. These brackets are necessary when you have more than one instruction in here. So for this one, it's not actually necessary to put these curly braces in, but it is good practice. Now down here, I've tried to keep my code pretty concise and efficient. There's only one thing I want it to do, which is move. So after the condition, if that condition is true, then it's going to do that. And then I end the line and it goes on to the next one here. You see at the bottom, this should have been your solution for getting it to point in the direction of the mouse. And I'm just going to delete that because that part's not necessary for me. And there's one more thing I need to do. Up here, this object here has a square mask or collision mask. I'm just going to go into this and demonstrate what will happen if I do this or leave it like this. So I go over to here. Okay, it actually doesn't let me cause that error. Okay, right there. Right there, yeah, I can't move my mouse to show you, but in the corner of the object, I can't actually move, or it was letting me move away, but it's working. It shouldn't have worked. Anyway, it is a little bit glitchy. It's kind of hard to get them to move without glitching out. What I did to fix that glitch, and if you try it, you'll know what I mean, is to change this to an ellipsoid. Okay, if you think of this, this is probably going to be a person or something. It's not going to be just a square block in the end, and so it'll have a different shape on it. And an ellipsoid is probably the better shape to use. It'll make it so that I can smoothly move around those corners. And it just works a lot better. It's kind of hard to explain. You kind of have to experience it yourself, but it does work a lot better. Now, one thing with player speed, and you'll notice that if you've followed me exactly, that you won't be able to get through some of those gaps there, but others you will. That's to do with the player speed variable. Because those blocks are 32 by 32, my character is 32 by 32, I need to have my player speed at a size that is divisible by 32, and 6 is not. So 4 is, and 8 is, and so if I set it to these, if I set it to 4, I should have no problem moving through some of these gaps. It's a bit slower, so depending on the direction that I've got it set to, I should be able to move through some of these gaps, although, no, oh, there we go, I got there. Ideally, I'd want to make this character smaller so that I don't have those kind of things, and that comes down to your design and conceptual design parts, and then also your testing. So you don't want to have errors like that. You want to make it so the game is actually playable and enjoyable without people having to glitch their way through stuff. So what you need to do now is once you've fixed that up so that you can't walk through walls, is you need to go into your bullet script and make it so that when the bullet collides with a wall, it is destroyed, okay, rather than just shooting through the wall. Now, you can add an event to do that, and that is how I would do it. It's much easier just to add a collision event with the wall, and then a piece of code, or even I should just fix that up here. Initialize. Okay, even just a piece of code that destroys the object, or even that, okay, because it's just one block, that'll destroy the object as well. I think that one is destroy, yeah, that's destroy instance. I don't want to do that when it gets created. So that's your job there, and then test that out. You should be able to move around the room, shoot those bullets, and when they hit the wall, they will get destroyed.